Hi guys, this is Nick Regan here with an image of Retouching, a beautiful model we took last week at the fashion group at the Camera Club in Kennington. So this is our initial starting image, which is a really nice, colourful, soft image. Really nice. When I say soft, I mean beautiful, soft pose. So starting image, and this is our finished image. So I've given it a little more of a fashion retouch, and I'm going to show you how we got to this stage. The first thing I always do when I'm working on any image is I always make a copy of the background, which is this one on the right hand side. You can see this layer, background copy. This means that whatever work I do, whether it's dodging, burning, stamp tool, healing brush tool, is done on this layer. And because it's a destructive process, if you go too far, you can't actually go far along before you want to change it. I can't actually go back to change it. It means any changes I make will stay on this, and I can always discard this layer and go back to my original background layer again and start again. So that's the first thing I do. Next thing I do is I've gone to the next layer, which I've called hair. And if you see up close, you can see around by the neck where, oops, let's move it down this way. So around these little messy bits of hair, as you can see, nice smooth neckline. There's also a little bit here just to smooth a little line and create a nicer shadow and line on the edge of the dress. And did I do any more at the bottom on this one? No. So then I move on to my next layer, which I call my liquify layer. What I've done is I've made a stamp of my background copy and my hair layer and put those into this layer here, which I call stamp, which is, I can turn those ones off now, and I have those two layers here, the hair and the background copy, now compressed into one layer that I can work from with one layer. And I've used the liquify tool. And if you look, as I switch from one layer, the liquify tool, this is the original layer. You can see around by her right hip. I've taken the shape in a bit. I've squeezed the shape in a little bit at the bottom by the legs, and also a little bit on the right hand side as well, just to give what I think is a nicer, smoother shape. You can also see on this layer I've made a few adjustments around her face and around the garland on her head. I use the stamp brush to smooth around Zoko's face, and I've also used the next layer as a dodge and burn layer. And what I've done here, and I'm sorry about this guys, I haven't got a copy of the selection I made, but essentially what I did, I used the quick selection tool, went around, all around, like this. And as you can see, if I press Q, this is what's selected. So we've got Ritsuko selected here. I made and I just pressed the Q button there, guys, and it shows you the quick mask, so you can see exactly what's selected and what's not selected. I went up to selecting, and I further down to modify, and I just made a slight feather of 2 pixels on the selection, so it gives a slightly softer edge. As you can see, there's a bit in the middle here caught, but I took that piece out as well. So let's just go back a few steps to get us back to where we were. So I selected that, copied that to a new layer, and then I did what we call a clipping mask. And you make a clipping mask by holding the control or command key down and clicking on the edge of the layer. Easy it is. It normally works. Cancel. Oh, come on. sorry, is a Control or Command key, and you move down to create clipping mask. And what this does, it takes that selection, and any layer you move on top of it that is connected to this clipping mask, it only affects that layer. So this next layer, I've done what I call my dodging and burning. And as you can see, I've added quite a lot of shadow. And what that shadow does, gives an almost three-dimensional effect to the picture. We've got a fairly flat light here, flat soft light, but as I add this three-dimensional effect, you can see I've built the shadows up around the back of her arm, to give her arm more definition, and on this side and the outside and the inside, and also add a bit of highlight here, which gives a three-dimensional effect. I've added some nice curvature here, and some shadow on this side, a little bit around these shoulders, just a little bit of definition, and you can also see I've added a little bit more definition around the side of her face with the shadow, and a smidgen more definition under her cheekbones. Looks great. There's also a little more definition, if we go a bit taller, in and around the flower garland. It took me quite a while to do this, guys, and I'll show you in another tutorial how to make a clipping mask and the quickest way to use this tool, the Dodge and Burn tool. And finally, what I did, I made a hue and saturation adjustment, initially really to highlight the flowers and make the flowers a little bit brighter. And as you can see, what I've done in the hue and saturation, we've got a white mask where the hue and saturation is affecting the colour. I've used hue and saturation mask like this, and you can see it's grey in the middle. And what I've used down here, I've used a B for the brush, and I've flipped this back to default and back to black over white. So white reveals, black conceals is the way it goes. So what I've done, and I'm going to show you a little bit here now on Ritsuko's face, is I believe her face is a little too colourful. So I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to set its opacity at the top here, so in B for brush, set its opacity to 50%, and I'm going to use the colour black. So I'm going to paint with black. I'm just going to make that brush a little bit harder. You can see it's a nice soft brush. As we go further down, like that makes the brush edge really hard. As I move up, makes the brush softer. And I'm holding here, guys, Control and Alt down. As you can see, slide it left to right. It makes the brush larger or smaller, up or down, harder or softer edge. Fully soft edge, a little bit smaller. At 50%, I'm just going to take a little bit. So you can see initially what's happened there. I've taken a lot of the colour out of the face. So before the brush, after the brush. Before the brush, after the brush. Now if I think I've taken that too far, if I use down here on the right hand side, if I press X to flip them back, we're now going to white, so we're going to paint white back in, and this is the beauty of an adjustment layer. It's non-destructive. You can take colour out or add highlights. If you've gone too far one way, you can put them back in. But if you use the eraser tool, it's destructive. And also with the when you're using the Dodge and Burn tool, it's difficult to get those back because they're destructive as well, fairly permanent, unless you use them on another layer. So my brush is now was at 50%. Back on the B for the brush, it was at 50%. We're now going to white, and I'm going to set it at 10%. And see if I can bring a tiny bit of that colour back. There we go, just a little bit of that colour back. There we go, that looks nice. You can see the colour in the garland looks really nice. And so to finish off the image, once I'm happy with that, which I'm pretty happy with that again, I've made a final image of all the layers I've used. Hue saturation, my clipping mask for the Dodge and Burn. Let's mark that as Dodge and Burn layer. So, oops, so I know what it is. So I've taken background copy, hair, stamp with the liquify, Dodge and Burn, hue saturation, and I've used on a Mac the Alt Command Shift E key to make a complete layer. Now this layer here, this new layer, I lay them as, call them stamp layers, and that is a flattened layer of all the ones in front below it that we selected. So we don't need that layer now. So this is my final layer. So I can turn off all the layers underneath. Oops. Turn off. Let's do this again. Turn that one back on. So this is our final layer. And if I turn that one on there, and turn this one off, start, finish. So as you can see, quite a big adjustment. It looks much more fashiony, more glamorous. Quite easy to see this on the cover of a magazine. And to be honest, if I added some text behind that and some text on the side of it, it would look pretty good as a magazine cover. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any comments, please drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like any more particular tutorials done on Photoshop or Lightroom, drop me a line. I'd be delighted to help you guys out. And that was Nick Gregan for VeryEasyPhotography.com. Thanks for watching.